Hello, hello, hello. I figured that I would do a surprise live stream today because I kind of ran out of time and energy to do the thing that I usually have scheduled to do today, which is to do another installment on the relationship compatibility stuff. So instead of that, I didn't want to totally just leave you alone. Namaste, 5 Elements by Abhilash. So I didn't want to just totally leave you alone, so I thought I would just come on and do an impromptu Q&A. So if you have any questions, it's an Ask Me Anything hour or whatever, half hour. Hopefully there'll be good questions or funny questions, interesting questions. If I pick and choose a little bit, don't hate me, because I'll answer the questions that I feel like are inspiring to answer, that I'll give you a good answer with. So how do we move this one up a little bit? Just a second, let me see this. Pop it out. Okay. So, do I analyze dreams? Not very professionally, because I don't know how to do it. But if somebody wants me to analyze a dream, I just make sense out of it, like I would make sense out of anything. Let's see what else. Please, sir, tell more about combust planets. I did a whole video on combust planets. So my recommendation to you, Harsh, is Google Victicara YouTube combust planets. And I'm pretty positive it's going to show you that that video that I did with Parisa. It was a Q&A with Parisa. Let's see what else we got. Now, here's the kind of questions that I don't want to answer. Venus and Ardra, second marriage will sustain. You know why I don't want to answer that? There's 2 reasons. It's exhausting to me, personally. And you can't possibly give me all the details that I need to know to be able to answer those questions. So I'll skip those kind of questions. Okay? Unless for some reason I feel like, well, I can speak to this question. Here's a question from Saurabh Raghunathji. How different music genre comes with different planet effects? That's a very interesting question. So he's basically saying, how do the planets relate to different styles of music? First way of course, we'll have to do this on the fly because we have new styles of music all the time. But what you can do is you can think about what kind of personality types like which kind of music, or what kind of personality traits are evoked by different types of music. And you can say what kind of personality types are associated with the planets. So let's start with the sun and compare it to the moon. The sun's music will be more like militant, by which I mean it will have a clear, steady beat that's very crisp. Sun's music will have a clear, steady beat that's very crisp. The lyrical content in the music will be pretty direct. And it will usually be somebody telling you something about something moral, like something right or wrong. That kind of music where it's a very direct music, it's very crisp music, and it's kind of clear cut in the lyrics as well. Whereas if you compare with the moon's music is going to use softer transitions between notes, less harshness or transient sounds, those really spiky sounds, less percussive transient sounds, more ornamentation or alankar than the sun. The sun won't use that much alankar, any notes or ornamentation. It'll go straight to the note. But the moon will put more alankar on the note or decoration around the notes to kind of hide it and make you wait for it. So the moon's music is more feminine, obviously, is basically what I'm getting at. The sun's music is more masculine. The moon's music will be more windy, more loopy, less straightforward as the sun's. The lyrical content will be more imaginary. It will just evoke images in your mind. And the subject of the lyrics will be more about feelings and experiences. Like I think Radiohead is a good example of a band that has a lot of lunar influence in their music. So it would be interesting to get their charts, especially of the songwriters in the band. Maybe they're all songwriters, and see what's going on with the most prominent planets. But Radiohead is a kind of moon meets Ketu, or moon meets Saturn, where it's minimalized and not really decorated, but it's very subjective and difficult to find the exact patterns. Whereas with the sun, the patterns are right in your face. So something like Bach, this is like very sun type of music. It's right in your face. The pattern is there. It repeats a zillion times. And it's, obvious and very interesting because it's so militant. What moon is like, whoa, what is this? You think you understand it, and then it switches. Mercurial music will be neat, but not heavy like the sun's. Okay. I don't know, should we go through all of these things? Well, we'll go a little quickly. Mercurial music will be well organized, neat, and kind of intellectual. So there'll be, like, these lyrics will be very sophisticated. And there'll be lots of puns in the lyrics and double and triple meaning in the words. And well-organized music means, like, the patterns will be huge. There'll be patterns within patterns within patterns. So you'll have a little pattern in the riff, and then there'll be a pattern in the verse, and then that pattern will switch to another pattern, and then those two patterns will form a bigger pattern that switches to something else. Will be very patterny and well organized. Once you get the pattern, you're like, this doesn't deviate at all. But it will be a little bit difficult for you to get the pattern. So it's like halfway between sun and moon is mercurial music, which is Mercury's thing. He's always halfway between everything. It's going to have patterns and clarity like the sun, but it's going to be such a sophisticated patterning and clarity to it that it's going to take you a while to figure it out, like the moon. Venus music is going to be not a lot of makeup, not a lot of cosmetics, but very beautiful in the actual content. And it's going to be a little bit more raw than you're going to expect, because Venus is beautiful because of who she is and doesn't need to put any fancy stuff on. Rahu is the one that's always putting on fancy stuff to kind of hide the zits and hide the wrinkles. But Venus is just beautiful and doesn't need to do anything about it. And so that would reflect in the musical style of Venus as well. You would get beautiful music that wouldn't be complicated. And it wouldn't have like virtuoso kind of playing in it either. Virtuoso kind of playing is in the Mercury's department. The dexterity, the excellence is mercurial music. The stuff that's just beautiful because the person has just expressed something beautiful perfectly well just by picking the right notes and being so sincere about it. That's Venusian music, regardless of the genre, really. If I could think of some examples of artists that would be Venusian, it's not so easy. But actually, like Johnny Cash is an odd mixture, has a lot of Venus in his music because it's just what it is, and what it is so attractive, but yet he's very masculine. So it's got to be Venus Saturn, or Venus Mars would describe Johnny Cash, or Chopin. Chopin is very moony or Venus. Sometimes Chopin goes into virtuoso stuff, but mostly Chopin is just these beautiful intervals, as far as I know. Okay, Mars music is going to be a lot like the sun, but you're going to have more anger in it. And it'll be more ambitious. And then Jupiter music, Jupiter music. I'm not really getting a clear picture on that one. Maybe Jupiter, Saturn, and the nodes would probably modify the other kinds of music. You probably get your basic types of music from Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. Or maybe even Mars is a modifier. You get just Sun, even Venus could be a modifier, just Sun and Moon, really. And then Mercury is a halfway in between the two, and then they can be modified by Venus. Venus adds this beautiful sincerity. Mars adds an arrogance to it. So you get punkiness from Mars, rebelliousness from Mars. So there's a lot of rock and rolls coming from Mars. Jupiter will add a bigness to it, like an epicness to the sound, a deepness to the sound, like Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. Bum, 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 bum. It's just Jupiterian. Or there's a band called Bad Brains. The opening song on the record Eye Against Eye is just this huge Jupiter, like a minute and a half of Jupiter. Saturn, it's going to be, there's a lot of Saturn influence in a lot of music where you get a lot of grit and where you get things that are intentionally out of tune or things that are intentionally distorted. But it's going to be close with Rahu there. Rahu, Mars are very rock and rolly, distorting things, exaggerating things, turning up the volume really loud. The Ketu, so punky, metally, aggressive music is very Rahu and Marsy. You could mix it with anything to get specific little exact bands, you know. And then Ketu music would be like real emo style, sad music where you're just like talking to yourself almost while you're singing. Okay? That's my on-the-spot description of the way planets correspond to music. Thank you for that question. That was a fun one. What do I like about Japan? Fuzz mantra. Fuzz is like a Rahu fuzz pedal on mantra, which is maybe Jupiter and Ketu. All right, so Fuzz Mantra wants to know what I like about Japan. The people follow rules, which is amazing for me coming from New York, an Italian background, and it's even more amazing for me being a lover of India and having spent a lot of time living in India, to all of a sudden live in a place where people actually follow the rules even when they don't have to, is so relaxing and safe. So that's what I like the best about Japan, is that it's probably the safest place in the world to live in terms of crime. Minor and major crime is just like non-existent. So I mean, like, one of the amazing things about Japan, the first time I visited here, my brother-in-law left his fancy camera on a ATM machine. And we went back an hour later and it was on the ATM machine still. Or sometimes I had left my wallet somewhere and you go back and somebody gave the wallet to the person. So it's like Japan is like that. So that's what I like the best about Japan. Arvind, Vimshotri Dasha relations to stars is not a complete one. Sorry, you have to ask it again because I don't understand the question. So you could try to ask it again. Hopefully I'll get to it. Bogunt asks, can you talk about people born in lunar eclipses? Look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump is born in a lunar eclipse. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is born in a lunar eclipse. My mom is born in an eternal lunar eclipse. I don't know if my mom is a lunar or solar eclipse. I have to look up her chart again. But basically, you're going to get people who just are very, very, very different when they're born in the lunar eclipse, especially if it's not just during a lunar eclipse, which is everywhere, but if the lunar eclipse is visual on their point where they were born, as it was in the case of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's what I'll say on that. Oh, I meant to ask this. This is after school kill time. Oh, I meant to ask this during the Punarvasu live stream, but based on what you said, does Aditi rule the notion of archetypes? Or does she rule the collective consciousness? Aditi is just... I don't really know what you mean by those terms, archetypes and collective consciousness. Aditi is the goddess of space, which is the reason why she's the goddess of space is because she's the goddess of indivisibility and primacy. like the origin of things is Aditi, and the way that things spring from their origin and then come back to the origin is Aditi's. So I don't know if that relates to collective consciousness or archetypes or not, but that's what she is. And the more you know about collective consciousness and archetypes, the more you can figure out. Fabrizio, good morning. Hey, look, there's no more. Here we go. Oh, cool. Oh, you guys gave some cool stuff about music. Okay, Fabrizio wants to say, what does astrology tell us about the moment of death? We can refer to a kind of death chart, or is it all about the state of consciousness we have when we leave this body? So, astrology is based on the idea that the configuration of the universe, which is symbolized in the configuration of the planets, at the moment that something begins, gives you a barcode or a serial number to understand the karmic forces that are involved in creating that thing. You understand that that's an important thing to grasp. The condition of the universe at the time you're born is the code to tell you what you're made out of. So the positions of the planets is a symbolic way to understand the condition of the universe at the time that something begins. And that symbolism gives us a code, like a barcode or a serial number, that describes that thing that's been created at that moment. So if you do a death chart, a chart for the moment at which something dies, you may be then actually looking at what is the beginning of their journey to the next life. So a death chart of a person might give you insight into how they're going to spend their time with Yamaraj. Because that's what happens. If you look up my video on Magha Nakshatra, the first one that I did a couple of years ago, you'll learn a lot about how the afterlife works with Yama and the Yamadutas and so on, the Pitris. So everybody's going to have some interaction with Yamaraj after they die. And theoretically, a death chart could show you what that's going to be like, but it's not going to show you what your next birth is necessarily going to be like, although you can infer that with what happens with Yamaraj. So I think what you're asking is, can astrology tell you, by looking at the moment of death, can astrology tell you about what the next life is going to be? Yeah. It can. You don't even need to look at the death chart to do that. There's techniques for figuring it out from the birth chart. Just because, like, when a train is on a track, then when it goes from station A to station B, the fact that it goes from station A to B tells you that it's not going to wind up at, it's going to go to C next. So the direction of karma, you can project it forward more than one lifetime. However, you practically understand how difficult it is to do anything in astrology when the person is right before your eyes? It's very, very difficult to be really consistently correct. It takes a lot of study and practice to be consistently correct on topics that are right in front of your face, that the people can see and touch and feel, and that you can see and touch and feel. So asking astrology to go into the realm of things that can't even be verified, which cross beyond the body, the threshold of death, you're kind of taking it all on faith anyway. So better for you would be to just simply go on logical principles, like which Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. What was it? What bhava you have is the place where you go. The nature that you cultivate now determines where you go next. If I'm getting hungry now, then I go to the refrigerator next. If I'm getting sleepy now, then I go to the bed next. right? So he says that's the basic thing. And you could see if a person is basically cultivating more tamasic, sattvic, or rajasic tendencies, and you can tell if they're going up, down, or staying in the middle. That's the best way to figure out the next life. What is your take? Jamie Nazario wants to know, what's my take on stelliums in a natal chart? Stelliums is just where you have multiple conjunctions. So just handle it the same way as a conjunction. The key thing for dealing with conjunctions is to figure out which planet dominates. Just like when people get together. When people get together, there's almost always one person that's the leader of that little group. And sometimes it's more exaggerated than others. But there's practically always somebody that is kind of the key decision maker. Even if it's a group of 6-year-old girls, there's one of the 6-year-old girls that just for some reason or another takes the lead. And sometimes it's different on different days, or sometimes it changes from moment to moment. But that dynamic is always there. That people don't really operate without a leader-follower dynamic. It's just not really possible for groups to operate like that. So planets are just like that. When they get together in a group, you as the astrologer or interpreter of that grouping want to try to figure out which one of these planets is the leader and which of the other ones are the followers. And the easiest way to do that is take recourse to the Parashari, or it's really ubiquitous in all Vedic classical astrology books, the system called Shadbala, the Bala, the strength that a planet has. The more Bala a planet has, the more it takes the lead amongst other planets. And in some cases, you may really give some emphasis to declination of the planet. It's maybe more important than it is in just standard Bala calculation. The declination of a planet really shows the superiority of that planet in a conjunction with the nearby planets. So one option that you have is take the planet with the highest Shadbala and make that planet the boss. So, and then make the other guys the assistants. The other option that you have is find the planet with in this stellium, find the planet with the highest declination, make that planet the boss, make the other ones the assistants. Then you have a lot of traction for doing your interpretation, because it's just like if you're going to decorate a Christmas tree, you get a tree first and then you put the decorations on. Once you have a tree, you have a lot of traction. You can go out and buy decorations first, but you need the tree before you can do anything with these decorations. So the planet that's the most dominant in the stellium is like the tree, and the other planets become like the decorations. So you'll take the symbolic nature of that main planet and make it the pillar, and then the other planets around it are going to modify that pillar. That's basically how I deal with stelliums or any type of conjunctions. Another basic thing to mention about stelliums is generally we generally define a stellium as a lot of planets being in the same sign or house. So basically what you're doing is you're putting a lot of eggs in one basket. So you're putting lots of lords into one house. So what stelliums do is they kind of increase the risk. There's more at stake. There's more up for gamble in this chart, in this particular karma, this motion. If everything in the stellium goes great, the person becomes super amazing. If everything in the stellium doesn't go great, the person becomes a real wreck, because all the eggs are in one basket. So that's why if you look in Vedic Sankhya yogas, which are the yogas of counting, Sankhya means to count. The astrology Sankhya yogas, it's one of the simplest yogas you can do, and it's one of the best. It's most useful. You just count how many signs are occupied by this 7 visible planets: Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. So you got 7. They could possibly be in 7 different signs, and they could possibly all be clumped together in one sign. And if you study those, to have them all spread into 7 signs, it's called Vina. It just sounds beautiful, like a musical instrument. It's amazing. You become a well-rounded Renaissance person, talented. Or this is just a simple background yoga on the chart. So it's indicating that that's your point, that's your outlook on life. That your outlook on life is you're going to draw from a lot of sources, and you're branched out really well. You have your roots really well spread. And then the fewer number of houses get occupied, the more it becomes difficult. With 4 being about the cutoff point, switching from good to difficult, where 4 is kind of neutral. So like 6 houses occupied is called a Dharma yoga. This is another way to do it. Instead of just looking at stelliums, just look, another way of seeing how clumped up things are. 6 houses occupied is Dharma. According to sidereal, that's Trump's chart. The nature of Dharma is the person is generally trying to find out what's the right thing to do. And they're kind of obsessed, for better or worse, with their duties and tasks and jobs and things like that. Trying to be a good person or have other people be good to them is Dharma yoga. 5 is called Harsha yoga. So like musicians, people that love music, people that love poetry, people that like food, people that enjoy, people that experience life as an adventure. Harsha means to have your hair stand up on end. So it's people that are excitable people, stimulated people. That's Harsha yoga. According to tropical, that's Trump. It's also me. It's also Krishna. No, yes, it's also Krishna. It's also Krishna. And 4 is called Kedara yoga. It's people that are workers. So they're going to experience life mostly as jobs and tasks, and they're interested in working and getting things done, or that's how they feel, like they have a lot to get done. Then going below 4, the 4 is kind of like neutral. Going below 4 starts to get more difficult. So now you're getting your chart really clumped up. So if you have 3, it's called Shula, which means like a spear. So 3, having all planets in 3 houses makes you a fighter. It makes you have to compete a bit and have to struggle a bit and be more athletic and be stronger. So Shula people tend to be more strong, athletic, able to fight. 2 is called Yuga. Yuga. So Yuga just means 2. So it's very clumped up. So 2 people get to be very bipolar. Their life is getting really if it doesn't go good, when usually it doesn't. So you get all your eggs into just 2 baskets. So that means you're like, everything in your life is flipping between this one basket and this other basket. So they tend to get very extreme with Gola, with Yuga, only 2 signs occupied by the 7 planets. And then this, of course, you could have them all in 1. That's called Golem, which means just clumped. And that's just said to be very difficult. So there's that principle. The idea of stelliums can also be just, you could look at Sankhya yogas to see how clumped or not clumped the chart is in general. And then there's also a concept of sannyas yoga, which is if you have more than 4 planets in one house. It's something called sannyas yoga, which means sannyas means totally giving up. Nyas means to give away or give up. Sannyas means completely giving up. So it has that both double entendre is intentional. It's a very difficult yoga because it makes you have a lot of your eggs are in one basket. So you don't really spread out or become interested in a lot of things. You're very focused on one thing or 2 things, and you give up interest in a lot of other things. And so therefore, it's a yoga that you often find in people that are extreme about anything. So for example, extremely spiritual people often have a sannyas yoga in one of their houses. That's usually like 12 or 8 or 9. Maybe 1, just to make it prominent. Okay, so that's my take on stelliums. Let's see what else. Let's see. Jean wants to know, should we get away from our Ketu or should we incorporate its essence and then go towards our Rahu? You got to look up my video about Rahu and Ketu. Right, I forget the title. I think it's called Reversing the Decapitation or something like that. Solving the Rahu Ketu Dilemma. Try to Google something like that. Victor Kara, YouTube, Solving Rahu Ketu Dilemma. You should get to that video where I explain how Rahu and Ketu all by themselves illustrate a major lesson in life that you have to do. What Rahu and Ketu, in summary, what's going on is Rahu and Ketu create an illusion of polarity or duality in the two signs, in the two opposite signs or houses that they occupy. And what you have to do is see through that smoke and realize that these two things are not mutually exclusive or contradictory, that I can achieve one by doing the other and vice versa. So you have to take Rahu's head and put it back on his body. You take the house that Rahu is in and Ketu in, and instead of seeing how they're totally opposite, you get them back together. So look for that video for more on that. Eddie wants to know if Shadbala determines the strongest planet. Yes, it does, Eddie, my man. But strongest is not always the most influential. So this is something that I teach in level 3, which I'm just starting actually. We just started the first component of level 3 course, which is the aspects course. Shadbala is strength, but strength doesn't always equal influence. For example, there's that one astrologer, what's his name? I can't remember his name right now, but there's one astrologer who's a very good guitar player, but he's not a famous guitar player. So his bala for playing guitar is quite high, higher than mine. But I'm a more famous guitar player than he is. So it's not all about your bala. It's also about how you align with opportunities and how you take advantage of opportunities. So it's not only just about your strength, but it's also about the opportunities that you get to use your strength. So what you really want to do with Shadbala is use it as a value that you'll factor against another calculation, which involves how much the planet is, how much aspect the planet gives to other planets, to house cusps, how it aligns with the moon, how it aligns with the sun, how it aligns with the ascendant. So Shadbala the highest Shadbala planet is not necessarily the most powerful planet in the chart, though it has a head start to be so. But the planet has to have a chance to use its bala. So let's say, just use easy numbers. Let's say Moon has 4 bala points and Jupiter has 5 bala points. But the Moon is right on the ascendant, so it can use all of those bala points. Whereas Jupiter is 20 degrees away from the ascendant, so it's totally out of whack. It's out of line with all the house cusps, and it's not aligned to anything, let's say. So it has 0 chance to use its 5 points. That's what I'm talking about. However, if you got Jupiter in a conjunction with something else, then Jupiter's 5 points counts against that, in that conjunction with that planet. You see, this is the value of sticking with one system and not just trying to do newer and newer and newer things all the time, is that you just develop the system really well and thoroughly. All right. What would Vishnu's chart look like? Would he be a Capricorn? Well, Vishnu is not going to get a chart. No, Komal. I'm going to probably just boot you from my channel for being rude. As I said in the beginning, if I miss your question and you get mad at me, that's ridiculous. So don't do that. Otherwise, I don't want to deal with that. You should be more komal, which is soft. All right, so but that was funny what you said. India follows only astrology rules, not traffic rules, but they don't follow astrology rules either, if you know what I'm talking about. So where is this? What would Vishnu's chart look like? Would he be a Capricorn? Vishnu doesn't get a chart because Vishnu doesn't get born. He's Aja. But Vishnu's various avatars will have their own individual charts because they come into view in the universe at specific moments. So for example, Ram, to be honest, I don't know Ram's chart by heart. But Krishna's chart I know by heart. Krishna's a Taurus ascendant with the moon in Taurus, and Rahu in Scorpio, and Jupiter in Pisces, and stuff like that. So the different avatars have different charts, but Vishnu himself doesn't have a chart. Chart is for what the karma is doing to produce something. And even when an avatar appears, they appear through the karma, but not under the control of the karma. They're always, the Ishwar are in the control of the karma, but they still use the karma. The karma is the mechanism that manifests the universe. So the avatar uses it. So the avatar will also have some astrology. All right. That's an interesting question. Let's see. Does Ashtak Varga over 40 in the 10th house determine global fame? I don't use Ashtak Varga, so I don't know. What would be the conjunction of almost 6 planets in Sagittarius in December 26th mean for Makara Lagna? I don't know. Let me look at that and let me see. You know, you need to look at the chart with a clear mind, especially me. I can't just pop it in my head on the spot. To look at it with a clear mind and be able to look at everything. And there might be important things that you don't even know about that you wouldn't be able to tell me. Here's a question from Aravind. How are planets and stars connected? Vimshotri Dash is easier, and that is the correct way of connecting planets to stars? Or stars are in no way related to planets? Okay, I understand the question now. So he's saying the stars are the nakshatras, or in other cultures they're called mansions of the moon. So you got these stellar mansions, or these nakshatras. The signs are the zones of the sun's eclipse, of the sun's path. The sign, the 12 zodiac signs clearly belong to planets. It's part of the essential definition of a sign is what planet owns it. Arvind, he wants to find a way to do that same thing with the nakshatras. And people have been facilitating him doing that because everybody talks about planetary rulership of nakshatras. But he realizes that that's just because of Vimshotri Dasha. That's why he's asking about Vimshotri Dasha. Vimshotri Dasha is just where you set up a pattern of planets that will become active in life at a certain time based on where the moon was amongst the nakshatras when the person was born. So if the moon is in Rohini, then the person starts their life with the moon prominent. If it's in Mrigashirsha, they start their life with Mars prominent. And like that. Each different nakshatra has a correlation to a different planet. And so people have been, because people want to treat the nakshatras the same way they treat the zodiac, because actually they've even gone so far as to say that this nakshatras are part of the zodiac. They've actually gone so far to nail the zodiac to the nakshatras, thereby making a sidereal zodiac. So they want to treat the nakshatras exactly the same way they treat the signs. So they want to have a planetary ruler for the nakshatras. And they get it from Vimshotri Dash. And they completely ignore that Ashtotari Dash has a different planetary ruler for that same nakshatra. And that Kota Sama Dash has another one. And that every different Dash system has a different correlation of planets to nakshatras. That actually there is no inherent correlation of planets to nakshatras. The reason why is because you've got to comprehend local space, middle space, and deep space, which is Bhu, Bhuva, and Swa. Local space is right here, the Earth, the horizons, north, south, east, west. Looking out from local space, you can immediately see Bhuva. Looking out from immediate space, you can see Bhuva. The sky, which has got the sun in it. And then there's things that are revolving with the sun. The moving stuff. Actually, nakshatra means doesn't move, is one of the literal meanings of the word nakshatra. The stuff that moves is not in that stellar space. It's in a local space, a closer space. It's called a middle space, antariksha. The signs are in that space. The planets are in that space. Beyond them is Swarga, the place where everything goes. Nakshatra, the things that don't change. Nakshatra also means the thing where you go. Ultimate destination, the furthest thing. So the furthest thing out in space are the stars. So the planets don't associate with the stars directly. The stars are far away from the planets. But the planets are associating with the sun directly, intimately. So the planets are involved with the signs, but they're not involved with the nakshatras. What's involved with the nakshatras are devas, or gods. So instead of trying to say, this planet rules this nakshatra, and this nakshatra is in such and such sign, and that's why this nakshatra is like this, except the second half of it's going to be like that. And actually, the first quarter is going to be a little like this. Instead of that, you just realize that this nakshatra belongs to this god and has a particular shape. And it's got a name because of that shape and that god. And that reveals to you the meaning. So don't try to correlate planets to stars, to nakshatras. They're not related, except for the fact that since they're going to be all layers, you can look out and see the planets against the background of nakshatras. So part of the code of how the universe is configured at a given time is about seeing how the planets are related to the nakshatras. And also how the nakshatras are related to the equinoxes and the signs. Okay, next question. Does chanting mantras can also have side effects? This is from Somya. Can chanting mantras also have side effects? What about Ketu mantras? Well, technically, nobody can chant a mantra. Because technically, nobody's a brahmana of that type who's qualified to perform a ritual. So actually, nobody is getting magic accomplished by mantras because none of us are wizards. That age of magic and wizards is past. Sorry. We still have the mantras, and we can still use them, but they don't have that tangible, physical, direct, immediate effect that they had when they were done in part of an exacting ritual and pronounced exactly correctly with the exact correct conception. With an incredible amount of focus and vigor. So, yes, there are side effects of mantras, especially if you don't do them right. The most famous side effect is when Maya tried to create when he resurrected Vritra to kill Indra, because Indra had killed his son. And Maya's son had just gone to help Indra, to be Indra's priest while Brihaspati was punishing Indra. So Maya, the demon Asura, had sacrificed his son to go help Indra, his enemy. And then Indra, being so ungrateful, killed the boy. So Maya resurrected Indra's arch enemy Vritra to kill him. But he just mispronounced one syllable, so that instead of saying you are Indra's enemy, he said Indra is your enemy. So the meaning of the mantra then became, instead of becoming you will kill Indra, it became Indra will kill you. So it's a classic example for how exact the mantras have to be and how you get a wrong effect by doing anything wrong in a mantra. But I hope you're listening to this part. It's completely irrelevant in this day and age, because you're not going to be able to resurrect Vritrasura anyway, whether you do it right or not, because you're just not going to be able to do it right. So there are no there is an effect to every action, and if your action is correct, then your effect is going to be correct. But if you perform the action with some non-correctness, then your effect is going to be a little bit different than what you desire. So just try to get your comprehension of your action and motivation of your action to be right, and then you'll get the effect, the right that you want, whether it's from chanting a mantra or anything. Let's see. Sanskriti Barot wants to know, why are fragrances linked to Mercury? As per Brihad Parashar Shastra, isn't it a more Venus moon thing? It's because Mercury is earth element. So you have 5 star planets. There's 9 planets total, right? 2 of them are eclipse nodes. 2 of them are the luminaries, sun and moon. So the actual star planets, the planets that look like stars, are 5. And you have 5 primal elements in the universe. So there's 1 for each. Jupiter is ether. Now each element is perceived through a different sense. So ether is space. Sorry, space is perceived by the size of the vibration that can fit in it. So space is perceived by pitch. If you can fit a lot of vibrations into a space, it gets a higher pitch. If you fit less vibrations into space, it gets a lower pitch. So ether generates sound, and that's why Jupiter is a planet of sound, because it's the planet of ether. Then Saturn is the planet of air. So Saturn will be connected with the sensation of touch, because air moves things and your skin detects changes in pressure and movement. What changes in pressure over an area, which is movement. And then you get Mars is fire. And so Mars will affect your eyesight because it's the eyes that detect light, and fire produces light. And then the next one is Venus, which produces water. And that's going to be about your taste, your tongue. So Venus is more connected to the taste. And then finally, Mercury is connected to Earth. And Earth is perceived by fragrance. Now, why Mercury is Earth and not taste? I don't know. I haven't studied that, or I haven't learned that. So I don't know why, but the reason why Mercury is associated with fragrance is because Mercury is the earth element. And the earth element is the element that carries scent. So, I mean, I have a pretty big nose, right? So my second house, big, and it's an okay nose. So my second house is being aspected directly, 100%. Second house is face, right? By Mercury. So the nose is a prominent feature on the face. And yeah, so it just kind of works like you can really tell a person's nose, eyes, etc. All right, let's see another question. Please explain how Revati Venus understands mundane love. From Komal, the soft one. Komal Ja, the soft one, who makes a nice Ja. So how do you, Revati Venus, understanding mundane love, you're already off the page. There is no such thing as mundane love. And this is the problem with Revati Venus in this day and age, is that in this day and age, Revati is an Aries. So Revati Venus is an Aries Venus, and therefore has a little bit of difficulty intuiting what love actually is, and thinks that there's such a thing as mundane love versus something else. But there's only love. There's nothing mundane about it. Somebody else wants me to talk about the mass conjunction of planets in Sagittarius on the 26th. I can't. I need to look at the chart, and I haven't. Riku wants to know astrology versus free will. Please talk about this. Riku, just go to Google, say Victor Kara, YouTube, free will, and click on the video that comes up. I got a whole video on it. Fuzz Mantra says not everything is symbolic. In astrology, everything is symbolic. Sorry. Fuzzy boy or a girl. Ashwin what's the difference between the 7th lord of the D1 and the D9? Which takes precedence, and what do each of them convey individually? 7th house is the 7th house, 7th lord is the 7th lord. So they mean the same thing. However, your D9 chart is scoping within the D1. It's like if you say you live in Detroit, and then you say you live in an okay neighborhood. It's different than if you live in, what is that place? Malibu? And then you say it's an okay neighborhood. Your D1 chart is like Detroit or Malibu, and then your D9 is like an okay neighborhood. You get it? So, yeah, I live in, let's say I live in a middle-class neighborhood in Japan. It's different than a middle-class neighborhood in India. So the D1 acts like the country, and then the subdivisional chart is like you have to subset it or scope it within the bigger chart. So the D1 7th lord is going to take precedence over the subchart's 7th lord, whatever subchart you're using. But the subchart is going to be the one that gives you the confidence and the conclusion to the possibilities that are present in the D1. If you want a more example of how to do that, look at the recent video that I did on Donald Trump, analysis of Donald Trump's chart in tropical and sidereal. So you'll see how important divisional charts are and exactly how to use them, especially Donald Trump's 9th and 10th. Bhavana Suresh. I have a question on which house to read for second, third marriage. Don't know. You're in deep water when you're talking about second, third marriage. And it's not like it's going to be a different house. It's not that simple. When you're going to be reading something like second and third marriage, you're going to be seeing stuff like dual-natured signs, nakshatras like Punarvasu, things of that nature, Mercury affecting the marriage points, lords of dual signs affecting the marriage points. You'll be seeing stuff like that to clue you into the fact that you're going to have to divide up the results of this interpretation into multiple marriages. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not just that the second marriage is such and such house. Komal, another question. Saturn direct tomorrow. Will it give back results of past few years' good deeds? Few years, it hasn't been retrograde for a few years. Saturn direct tomorrow, the most important point there is that now Saturn is stationing. And Saturn stationing, any planet stationing means it becomes very forceful in its transit. So it doesn't mean the same thing to everybody, but it depends what the individual has in relationship to that place where that planet is stationing. So Saturn is stationing at such and such degree in Capricorn. So if you've got something at that degree in Capricorn, or that degree in Cancer, or that degree in Pisces, etc., wherever Saturn would exalt, would aspect or conjoin, then you're going to have some heavy Saturn stuff activating for you. Better or worse in the long run is determined by how Saturn is configured in your chart. But the overall flavor of Saturn is always kind of down to earth, minimalizing, getting more skinny, reducing. All right, let's see. After school kill time, another question. I can't recall the exact phrasing you said, but it went Brahma made the building blocks of the universe, making Aditi, but Aditi was the space that existed that Brahma made things from. Close. Aditi is the Shakti for Purushottam, Vishnu. So Aditi is particularly the Shakti of physical manifestation. So in other words, she is the building blocks. So like earth, water, fire, air, in the potential form are Aditi. And Brahma is the one who makes Aditi in, gets her into these primal. Actually, the primal forms form before Brahma can be. Vishnu is the one who, like there's a gestation period in the pregnancy, and the impregnation from Vishnu into the womb of the goddess, you can think of her as Aditi, is what causes that egg of Prakriti to split up and start dividing and become into its parts. So Aditi in her primal Prakriti form becomes agitated by Vishnu's glance, which is a conception moment. In the conception moment, you get a fetal form of the universe, which develops, and it takes billions and billions of years for this to happen. And that's probably what all the deep space is that we look at with the telescope, looking back in time and all that empty stuff where stuff was just coming together. Then when the actual building blocks get made, Brahma can be produced from those building blocks, and then Brahma can use those building blocks to make further designs and shapes. I'm going to skip Rod's question, but I really like the emojis. But if you have Venus, Mars, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune conjunction in Capricorn in the 6th house, so I would say forget about Uranus and Neptune because I don't use them. So what you want to do there, like I said before, is you want to figure out who's going to dominate this conjunction, Venus, Mars, or Saturn. You determine that maybe by declination if you like, or maybe by Shadbala if you can calculate that. And then that planet's going to be the main theme, and then the other guys are going to decorate that theme. So then you want to say 6th house, the sign. Let's say if it's Saturn, that's the main planet. Saturn in the 6th house is pretty good. It gives hardworking nature. It gives like longevity. But maybe it's not in a good sign. Maybe it's in Saturn in Aries that changes your thing. So that's why I can't answer these questions. It's too many details. But I could tell you point you the way forward. There is a way to answer the questions, but it's not in a Q&A session. It's in a reading. Okay. How do I know I will own my own house? Rose Pink wants to know. It's basically you want to see the fortune related to your 4th house. Avengers A wants to know how long have we been doing this? I'm starting to get a little tired. Yeah, it's almost been an hour. My mind's got like an hour limit. All right, let's do a few more. What are your thoughts on unaspected planets in the natal chart? From Tenu. Unaspect planets in the natal chart are fine. It's just they're just simpler, cleaner. It's like colors that haven't been mixed as much for a painter. The interpretation might be great. If they're in a good spot and they get no aspect from anybody else, then it's really great. That goodness from where they are, the house, the sign, it doesn't get interfered with at all. It doesn't get modified at all. If they're in a bad spot and they don't get any aspects, then maybe it would have been better to have them aspected. See? Eddie wants, this was a good one. This is a good one. What is Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha? I think I may have a video on this too. Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha are the Chatur Arthas, the 4 Arthas. The 4 things that are actually valuable in life, the things that should be goals for us. Okay? They're just actually sequential goals. Kama is the desire to experience something pleasurable. It's the basic goal that every life form has. Artha is the goal to have some security. But the purpose for having the security is that you can sustain your pleasurable sensations. So for example, a Kama goal is, I want to have a donut. That's Kama. Then Artha is, I want to have a bakery so I can always make donuts. Or I want to have money so I can always buy donuts. And then I'll need a car also so I can get to the bakery, or a horse or a bike or something. So I want stuff so that I can make sure that I always get my donuts. So that's the relationship between Artha and Kama. And Kama, these are also the 4 elements. Kama is air, where you just want to, so the air signs, they want to experience something. They're hyper for something to be experienced. They're alert for some experience. And they're into experiences and generating experiences. Then you got Artha as earth signs. They get practical and they get down to work because we want to get stuff to make sure that we can still have our experiences. Then the next goal is Dharma, which are the fire signs. They have this goal. Fire has Dharma nature. Dharma is that everybody should do what they're supposed to do. That's the concept that people should do what they're supposed to do, which is what I like about Japan, which was one of the earlier questions. People here just follow their Dharma without question. And they kill themselves a lot because if they don't like their Dharma, instead of not following it, they'll just kill themselves. So what Dharma is everybody should do what they're supposed to do because, look, I want donuts. And I worked really hard to get this money to buy my donuts. And if you just come to my house and steal my money and steal my donuts, that's not cool. But that's what happens, though. Like, I want donuts, and I'm a go-getter, and I get up and I make money, and I build a bakery, and I start farming flour and everything, and I make my donuts, and the jerk next door, who's this lazy bum, just storms my house one night and takes all my donuts. That's what happens when you don't live in Japan. So human society has this, animal society has this too, that you shouldn't do what you're not supposed to do. Every animal has like an instinctual role built into it and the part that it plays in the ecosystem. And as humans, we have it kind of more like even artificially developed, that we spell it out on more sophisticated things. So we have rules like you can't kill somebody else. You can't take somebody else's stuff. You can't walk into somebody else's house. Stuff like that. Those are the basic results of pursuing the goal of Dharma. And that's why fire signs are related to that, because fire signs are like stating, this is a yes, this is a no, this is a do, this is a don't. Go this way and don't go that way. That's what fire signs are really into. Finding out what's right and what's wrong. So like Sagittarius is really like learning what's right and what's wrong. Leo is like establishing it and protecting it. And Aries is like defending it. Maybe even spreading it. So spreading your version of it. So that's the relationship of Kama, Artha, Dharma. And then Moksha is where you think, cool, I live in Japan and nobody's stealing my donuts. But I kind of got sick of donuts. I got enough donuts now, but I still have that same feeling that I had before I had donuts, where I wanted something. So moksha makes you think, I'm fed up with this. I need a break. So moksha is water signs, where you get more quiet and you get more thoughtful. Like, what's wrong? Why didn't this work out the way I thought it would? Yeah. So moksha will either lead to depression, suicide, lack of ambition, or you just need to take a nap, or you need to go on a vacation, you need to get away, drugs, alcohol. Or it will lead you to, if you keep at the moksha thing long enough, you'll figure out that even if I take a vacation, even after I take a nap, it still comes back. You'll figure out that there's something really deep that's wrong about my attitude, that I want happiness, so I'm into donuts. Or when I got tired of donuts, then I went over to Barbie dolls. And then when I got tired of Barbie dolls, then I went to play tennis. And now I'm done with tennis, and I started trying to do astrology. And now astrology is getting boring, and so the next thing I'm going to do is yoga. And then I'm going to just go get into drugs. So after a while, when you figure out, nothing is working, there must be something fundamentally wrong in my nature So moksha will lead you to realize I just have a wrong attitude towards the universe to begin with, where I'm thinking about the universe as an object of my verb. And I'm not thinking about me as an object of the universe's verb. I'm thinking about God and the universe as if they were objects for my verb. Like I eat cookies. The universe is cookies. My verb is eat. I'm thinking about life and everything as if it's objects. And I'm thinking about me as if I'm the big subject of the whole universe. But maybe I'm an object and the proprietor of the universe is the subject. And when you get that idea, you got moksha. You got the door for moksha opens up, and you can start to experience donuts and Barbie dolls and all those things, not as the subject, but as the object. And that's when you can actually experience God. Because God, you can't make God your subject. You make yourself the object for God. And then all of a sudden, you are in a different world with the same donuts. So those are the 4 arthas. And there's also a 5th artha, which is called prema, which can potentially which is love. And that's why I said there's no such thing as mundane love. Because prema is the highest thing, and it only happens after moksha. Love only happens after you realize that you're not the subject, you're the object. And where you stop thinking that that's not a cool thing. That you're not the man. That's right. You're not the man. Stop thinking like that. That's the only way that you can open up the door to moksha and prema. So prema isn't even there in one of these elements. Prema it's not earth, water, fire, or air. All right, guys. Thanks, Eddie, for that nice question. Apologize to everybody else that asked questions, million questions. And sorry to Komal for getting the what do you call it? The ruler, the stick. Hopefully, sorry, but you definitely provoked it. So sorry to everybody, and thank you for spending some time with me. I'll see you again in a couple of days. Hopefully I can get the Einstein video done too, but I started doing the aspects class, so I'm a little bit preoccupied with that. Okay, guys, if you didn't get your questions in this time, then come earlier next time. Because if you notice, I just start at the top of the chat and just start going down. Hey, Yuyi. All right, friends. How do we stop this? YouTube is changing their whole thing.